I'm Kathleen.
And I'm Janine, and this is episode 2 of the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR podcast, where we discuss Friends episodes, Gilmore Girls episodes, and books that are related to Friends or Gilmore Girls, whether it be in theme or in setting. Yeah. The first book that we're going to talk about today is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. So this book is about two sisters named Nora and Libby. And Nora is a book editor from New York City, and she goes away on vacation with her sister Libby before she has her baby to Sunshine Forest, North Carolina, which is very similar to Stars Hollow from Gilmore Girls. Yeah. And let's see, discussion.
Similar setting.
Yes, discussion questions. Nora and Libby grew up together, and yet they experienced their childhood very differently. What do you think? Why do you think that is? Have you ever had this happen with a family member or friend?
I think they experienced their childhood differently because of one's more into books than the other, and one likes to know what happens for the other one. That's like they're like some people like the mystery of what happens at the end of the book, and other people don't as much.
I agree.
Yeah.
As children, Nora and Libby would change the ending of stories if they didn't like them. If you could change the ending of one book, what would it be, and how would you change it?
I always prefer happy endings towards books, so if I had to change anything, I would say probably I like books with happier endings. The sad endings always kind of get me.
That moves me to the next question. What is your idea of a happy ending?
An idea of a happy ending is when, I don't know, like, I guess just nothing sad happens and just either like, people make up or
nobody dies.
Nobody dies. Exactly.
Right. Like so I love reading Nicholas Sparks' romance books, but the only negative thing about his books is that
they're sad.
They're sad.
Yeah.
So, my favorite thing about Book Lovers is the setting of Sunshine Falls, because it's similar to Stars Hollow, and also the sibling relationship between Libby and Nora, because it reminds me of me and my sister, who is 6.5 years younger than me. What about you? What's the age gap between you and your sister?
God, we're like 4 to 5 years apart from each other in terms of age, because my sister's older than me. But I guess I enjoyed Nora and Libby's relationship because it kind of like you, it reminds me of my sister and my relationship we have because I'm the younger sister.
There's a sister relationship in this book too, Malibu Rising, between Nora and her sister Kit. And that's the thing I like the best about this book, because Nora helps her sister like pick out clothes. Like I never did that for my sister.
No.
Because we have different styles of clothes that we wear. So first question. Oops, I think
I've picked out clothes for my sister before, but Liza and I have similar styles. So.
Discuss the nature of sibling rivalry. Why do you think sibling dynamics can be so complicated? How do we use our siblings to define our own personalities?
I feel like sibling rivalry, at least when I experienced it when I was a kid, siblings are always arguing with each other. They always have difference of opinions on things. So I feel like older versus younger sibling scenario, somebody always doesn't get what they want. So I feel like there's always arguments over that, and
I agree with you. Like as I was saying before, my sister Kristen and I are 6.5 years apart, so like we have a lot of different, obviously because we were younger, we had different friend groups. We both like to read.
But you have different
hobbies. We have different hobbies other than that. And actually, we both like to write also, because we got that trait from our mom, because she's a children's book author.
Right.
Okay, next question about Malibu Rising. Destruction and renewal are big themes in this book. Where do you see those themes at play? What is interesting about those concepts? What other themes did you notice?
I feel like the destruction plot where they talk about all the wildfires in Malibu and out in California, which I feel like still stands true to this day, that there's a lot of wildfire destruction out in the California area.
Yeah.
And they talk about that a lot in the book.
I feel like that's very appropriate too because Earth Day was yesterday.
Yeah, so happy Earth Day, everybody.
What is interesting about these concepts about destruction and renewal, would you say?
I just feel like especially Malibu Rising, the book itself by Taylor Jenkins Reid is kind of stays true to everyday life, stuff that could, happen in our world still today. So it's like, that's the part that I feel like is,
The novel is in part about the way we repeat the mistakes of our parents to avoid doing so. How was Nina's life shaped by her mother's? How was your own life shaped by the people who raised you? I feel like this would have been an appropriate discussion topic for the next part of the podcast. We're going to talk about Mother's Day, but we can discuss it now to prepare.
Oh, well, we're talking about it early. I don't know. My mom, for example, has always been a good role model because she lets me be my own person. And then there's those occasional times where I feel like she worries about me more because I'm the youngest child in the family. So, I feel like sometimes moms can be a little bit more protective of the younger one.
I feel the same way. I mean, as I was saying, my mother instilled a passion of reading and writing into my sister and I because we both like to read and write, and she's an author, so we grew up around her publishing books and coming to our schools to give talks about her books. And I wanted to talk about my grandmothers too because they both passed away. One passed away in 2014, and I'll talk about her a little bit more when we talk about Say You'll Remember Me. And my other grandmother died in 2021. Well, we can also talk about her a little bit more and say They'll Remember Me because it relates to that book. But I feel like what they instilled in me was a good sense of self and a good sense of family history with all of the stories that they told about our families in other countries when they were growing up and stuff like that.
Yeah. That makes sense. The next book.
The next book we are talking about today is Funny Story, which I forgot to bring. So Funny Story was Emily Henry's new release from last year. In the next installment of this podcast, we will be talking about her new release that came out on Tuesday, Great Big Beautiful Life, which right now I am on chapter 15 in. So in Funny Story, we have Daphne and Miles, who are jilted at their weddings by their significant others because they end up hooking up with each other on bachelorette party night. And my favorite thing about Miles is that he reminds me of Nick Miller from New Girl. I don't know if you know that show.
I haven't seen it, no.
Oh, it's so good. So
I'll have to check it out.
Nick Miller is played by Max Greenwood. I can't remember, is his last name Greenfield or Greenwood? And Zooey Chanel is the one who plays Jess. And they end up becoming a couple, in the earlier seasons of the show. People compare New Girl as a modern version of Friends, which I think kind of makes sense, which is why I figured I would bring it up.
Yeah.
And I just love the dynamic between Daphne and Miles. And Daphne is also very bookish because she works as a children's librarian, and during the process of this book, she's planning the summer reading program at the library, which I think is really fun.
Yeah.
The next book we wanted to talk about is Abby Jimenez's new release, Say You'll Remember Me. And the reason why I wanted to wait to talk about my grandmothers until this book was because this book deals with dementia. And both of my grandmothers dealt with Alzheimer's and dementia, and I'm sorry. And my parents and their siblings really had to deal a lot with the similar issues that Samantha and her siblings and her grandmother deal with in this book.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me to read at certain times because it made me think of what my family experienced when my grandmas were dealing with dementia. But overall, I gave it 4 stars. And I would say that Xavier and Samantha are probably one of my top Abby Jimenez couples besides Bree and what's the guy? Bree and Jacob from Yours Truly. What did you think of Say You'll Remember Me?
I enjoyed the relationship between Xavier and Samantha, the 2 main characters in the book, just as well as you did. I just feel like they had a great chemistry. And I feel like Samantha kind of got stuck with having to take care of her mom a little bit more when she moved back home and stuff like that. So her, even though her sister and stuff like that was there, I don't feel like her sister really did a lot. So she was kind of burdened with the, taking care of her mom when she had the.
And what would you give Say You'll Remember Me for a rating?
I give it a 5-star, but that's only because I really enjoyed the ending of the book.
And we don't want to provide spoilers in case you want to read the book, but
provide any spoilers,
just remember the trigger warnings of dementia and death and stuff like that as you read. So I bought this book with me because I forgot we were doing a book to movie comparison in our next installment of the video. But as far as the book, I really liked it. I remember reading this book when I was younger, and I really enjoyed it, and I really loved my reread of it.
Yep. Me too.
And we will discuss the book to movie comparisons more next time in part 2.
Yep.
And finally,
Romeo and
page
Juliet.
2. All right, so the final book we wanted to discuss today was one of our February reads for the reading list. And of course, it's Romeo and Juliet, one of my favorite William Shakespeare plays. I read this in high school, English class, in 9th grade. And then after we read this play, we also watched West Side Story, which is my first favorite modern interpretation of this.
Retelling. Yeah.
Followed by the one with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes. So, we're going to talk about the book to movie to TV show episode comparison as the last part of this podcast. I grew up always really liking Romeo and Juliet, but as I have gotten older, one thing I have realized is that age gap is gross, because I read a book last year that is a prequel book to Romeo and Juliet, and in that book it is told that Romeo dated Juliet's cousin Rosalind before he dated Juliet. And that's pretty gross considering the age gap of both Juliet and Rosalind, which is 13, I think. And then I think Romeo is supposed to be 16 or 17. So that's kind of gross when you think about it, because he's dating somebody a lot younger than him. And with the Romeo and Juliet movie with Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio, the scenes that I really liked in that movie were the scene when they were at the Capulet party and the costume with the angel mask. And I also liked the dueling scene because it was in the middle of, it was on the beach. Yeah. And I just loved the California setting of Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes. And to wrap up this video, we're going to discuss the episode of Gilmore Girls where Paris is directing the Romeo and Juliet play for the school project. Yeah. And so I have said in previous videos I have made on my own channel that Paris has very similar personality traits to Monica from Friends, because she has OCD and she's really controlling.
She's a perfectionist, let's just put it that way.
Very perfectionist. And
she wants to get good grades in school, so she's always kind of just
and
going all for it.
That really irritates me in this particular episode, because it can make her very hard to work with, and I would not like to have a play director like her, because she would just stress me out too much because she's
Yeah.
always stressed. And I think that Brad would have been a better pick for Romeo than
I
Tristan
agree,
because
yeah.
Tristan was basically a slacker who would rather hang out with
Well,
bad kids and get into trouble.
Well,
I mean,
Tristan
I really
was
like.
always getting into trouble. Like he didn't really care about his grades, and he didn't really. He was kind of a troublemaker in school, so to speak. He was always the one not really caring about how he did. Tristan.
Yeah, and I also hated Dean in this episode because he was jealous of. He was jealous of Rory kissing Tristan. Like, it reminded me also of the episode, the one with Rachel's crush, where Chandler is watching Kathy's play and gets jealous of her kissing her co-star and makes like a big deal of it and breaks up with her over it. I really thought that was out of control for Chandler to do, and I hated that episode. But
Yeah.
Dean lacked the common sensibility to realize that Rory and Tristan were acting and they really weren't trying to get together. So that's one thing that really bothers me about Dean, and there are a few other things too, but we can get into those another time.
Yep.
So thank you for tuning in, and thank you to Amelia and Paul for their tech support today. We will be back in a few weeks with our second part of this podcast episode.
Yep.
Stay
Have a
tuned.
good day.